And I think there's a snobbishness with reading books. They are a bit outdated. They're a little bit like playing the spoons and tap dancing and the theatre. They were good once, but things have moved on.
The head's not quite on the right place. That's his little issue that he's got to work on for the moment.
My apartment smells of rich mahogany.
This was the largest audience to ever witness an inauguration, period.
Well, that's you, because you never won anything.
Hello and welcome to Under the Sticks, a podcast brought to you by Pro 14 Rugby, where we try every week to deliver half-baked opinions. I've forgotten my line. Served up as real rugby analysis.
That's beautiful timing, that is.
It's very appropriate for this.
Surely.
For anyone listening back, that is Adam's new little music for when I have what's called a technical moment that can come in at any time. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, on Twitter. We look forward to having some regulars in. Now that we have moved to a Tuesday night, we think this will work well for the show. We hope you agree, but let us know. Joining me today, I have Mr. Sean Holley. How are you?
Foggy.
We'll come back to that. Paul Williams, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you, gentlemen. New haircut. I think I've got my light on too bright tonight. I really think I need to turn it down.
Your light on too bright every week, mate.
I need to dial it down a bit.
Dean Budd, how's the form?
Yeah, very good, thank you. I've had a good day practicing my chef skills. Had the in-laws over for dinner, so made up a nice seafood risotto and a little bruschetta to start, just using my Italian influence to win some points.
Excellent.
Nice.
Like it. We are thoroughly impressed. Hello, Michael Jenkins. Hi from Pembrokeshire. Harley Worthy, yes, it was a brilliant start. This is what I try and bring to the show. James O'Brien, Ian Gilbert, Andrew Lustig. Yes, good birthday, Sean. Sean, was it?
Yeah, good birthday. Sporting vintage 1970 T-shirt.
Nice.
That's my birth year. Yeah, it was great. It was great. Very quickly, just my wife and kids, my parents and in-laws around the house. Nice little quiet afternoon and evening outside with a fire pit. Just tried to celebrate it. And then at about 10 p.m. after I'd had a few beers, my son Ryan said, "Come on in, we got a little den converted TV room here, big screen." And they put 45 minutes worth of clips, including your good self, McGeady, and our esteemed producer, Adam, of people I've worked with, family from abroad. And I was just an emotional wreck. I didn't expect it. And it was really nice. It was really, my elder son is in lockdown in Loughborough, tested positive with COVID, so he couldn't make it. He had put most of it together. And it was very emotional. So it made my day, of course. So thank you to everybody who's listening, who contributed to that. Made my day.
Good.
Lovely.
Like it. That was far too emotional for this podcast.
It was, yeah. That's the last bit of emotion. Positively, I'm going to exhibit tonight because I'm now going to direct everything at Williams for the next hour.
No, he's been lining me up since Saturday.
So what are we going to talk about tonight on the show? We're going to very quickly, Wilson's Warrior Challenge. Didn't quite get to this last week, and it's got even bigger. Brian Hayward, his Welsh hook. Ireland's call for James Lowe. The great Cardiff name change debate. Holly's heroes from round 5. Marcell Coetzee, the destroyer, and also Eddie Jones. He's always good value. Can he be serious about playing a ninth forward on the field? We'll get to all of that with a bit of luck later on the show. Gents, we will start off Wilson's Warrior Challenge. I think there was only 4 games for various reasons in the championship last weekend. One of them was not a great result for Glasgow. Kind of hammered. Sean.
Yeah. it wasn't a good result last week, although they played okay. And you play Leinster, then you're sort of half expecting to lose these days anyway. But yeah, the scoreline and the performance doesn't all go well, considering. And I was up in Edinburgh last night, as you know, that both Danny and Cockers have been told they won't be getting any players back from the Scottish squad for the duration of the Nations Cup. Now, that's obviously because they need the players, because it's game after game after game, but also this COVID situation. I don't suppose they can risk, moving players from bubble to bubble. So it's not going to get any better squad-wise for Danny. And I spoke to him the other week. I went up to do his game against the Scarlets, and I spoke to him about it. And he said, it's just now has to be seen as an opportunity to blood some youngsters and hopefully get it back in the future, buddy, and weather the storm. He's going to have to take flack. Already the Glasgow Warriors fans are getting stuck into him by all accounts. But what can you do? He had 1 second row fit to play against Leinster. And this week then, he's having to throw in boys. You've just got to weather the storm. You've just got to blood some youngsters. Use the time to develop players and teach them, get them up to speed, try and get a couple of points here and there, and wait for the cavalry to arrive, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a really tough one. I think these will be forgotten years, last year, this year, and as much talent as you can bleed now and get it done, everyone forget about, I think is the best for everyone. It's weird. I'm coming over to Europe. I knew nothing about Glasgow, but when I arrived, they were one of the teams to beat, and they were one of the most formidable sides we ever came across and in Europe. So to see them kind of lose their sting and fear in their name, it must be hard for the fans up there.
Do you know what? There's also an argument for a bit of honesty, I think, for Danny Wilson, because what do you expect him to do? You see the team he put out last night against Ulster. I've written about it in my column. The spine that Ulster were able to put out was incredible compared to Glasgow. And if I was Danny Wilson, I'm getting heat. I'd just go on, do a Facebook Live and say, this is what I've got. You can come and coach them if you want to, but I can't pick it. They're not here. The players aren't here. So we are probably going to lose games. That's what
you'd want to manage that message pretty carefully, because if you don't do it right, it's going to be just Danny Wilson going like,
these are shit.
He's going to lose the fans and his players.
But the upshot of it is they've only got 2 professional teams in Scotland. So when the Scottish boys go, what are you going to do?
The issue is, unfortunately, you're going to lose players in the autumn period. It doesn't matter that there's been COVID and there are slightly more games and more condensed. Yeah, we get that. So the issue, Danny has inherited this, unfortunately. And the issue for me is in the development side of the game, your academy and their coaches, and the amount of players that you bring in through, because you should always prepare for this. Leinster had 17 players missing against the Ospreys on the weekend.
Yeah, that's true.
Glasgow had 14. Edinburgh had 23 missing. They still beat the Blues comfortably to 0. So you can say those things until you're blue in the face, right? It's unfortunate, as Dean says, right? Zebre were missing 11 internationals last week against Ospreys, who had 7 internationals in the pack and pumped them in the first half. So you can have those arguments all the time. It is what it is, and you've got to make the most of it. Me, half full, as you know, Paul.
Yeah,
I see it as an opportunity, and you prepare for this. You bring them through. Your talent identification needs to be good. You don't just look at your international under 20s and under 18s team and say, oh, he's a good player, because that isn't the right benchmark. You've got to have coaches and recruitment people in there who have an eye for a player who can step up, and that might be a 22-year-old. Doesn't matter, right? And can step up and do a job in those times and learn, and you might unearth a gem. Right? And unfortunately for me, Glasgow looks like they haven't done that yet, and Danny will be going through that process now from scratch. And sadly, the Welsh regions don't look like they've been doing that. They don't, do they?
No, they don't at all. No, that's a very accurate assessment, I'd say.
Sean, If Facebook Live had been a thing when you were coaching, would that have been good or bad for your coaching career?
I tell you something, and I don't want to monopolize tonight, boys, because I am on fire, right? But do you know what? Sod all those outside the room. It's about what's inside the room, because the people in the inside the room will dictate what outside the room says and thinks. So you don't need to go on Facebook Live or down the club and tell everybody. Don't. You deal with it inside, and you make people proud of you, and you make yourselves proud of each other, and you put up performances. And even if you do lose, you lose in such a way that people say, do you know what? I'm pretty proud of that performance today. They did all they could. All right.
Yeah.
And that would be my way of doing it, you know?
So can we move on to stuff which might not be okay inside the room, which is Wales. So Lou, firing your defence coach, coming into this batch of tests, and I know the Autumn Nations is a make-you-uppy thing. We've already done that in previous shows. Everything is on the table this year, this season, just to get cash in to keep rugby going. So we're not even doing that. But it does seem odd timing. Paul, what does it feel like for you?
It is odd timing, but I think something needed to happen, because you can't really look. I know what Sean is saying about on the outside, you shouldn't really be worrying about that, but it sounds like the problems with this were very much inside. Without going into too much detail, I don't think things were going to plan internally, which is a shame, because he's actually a very nice man. But something that you can't lose 5 on the bounce in Test rugby. That just doesn't happen. It's the Glasgow thing's one thing. You lose 5 at Test level.
Does happen.
Well, it does happen. Yeah, but you lose 5 at Test level, Sean. That's a different game, isn't it? You are back page of the newspaper every day. So it's I think
it's really contrasting from when you've been one of the best teams in the world to 5 on the trot.
And do you know what's made it worse is that it was the defence that went under the microscope. And of course, we had Sean Edwards, who arguably is like top 2 defence coaches in the world, has been for like the last decade. All of the Welsh players know that system and are used to it. You've still got an awful lot of senior players there who've grown up with that system since their early 20s. And then once that changes, problems arise, as we've seen, and that is what's happened.
Look, we can only speculate at the moment. There isn't a lot of fact unless you know somebody on the inside, and they're not going to give too much away. But reading between the lines, it's an early decision, knowing what's coming up, because it's not going to get any better in the next couple of weeks. It's going to get worse before it gets better. So it's a soft landing. And maybe, I don't know this, I'm just reading between the lines that maybe Byron might have conceded, look, all right, this isn't going to work. Maybe I'll help you and say, yeah, you're right. Okay. But the timing is awful. And, for a player, Dean, you're going to be confused as to what's going on.
Yeah, it's to change this. I mean, these systems, like you say, they take years to develop, and to have one come and go pretty quickly like that, it's impossible to speculate. I wouldn't want it personally as a player if you've just started relearning something, to then have someone else come in that's going to have a whole bunch of new ideas and then try and start that process again. It's pretty difficult. So unless it's Sean Edwards coming back and they all know that, then great. But
it looks like Gethin Jenkins is going to pick that up in the interim, and I imagine he's going to be picking up from within that Sean Edwards system. Let's face it. That's reading between the lines, but that would be the obvious conclusion. And
that would mean a slight change back again, which is what Dean was saying. And
exactly.
What I didn't like was the ambiguity in Wayne saying, when asked that question, he said, "We'll work at it as a coaching group." There's too much ambiguity in that. No, international rugby, hang your hat. Gethin's going to be the defence coach now. That's why we made the decision. He's in place, because if it goes wrong again on Friday, which what's the chances of that? There's going to be huge pressure coming on and a lot of speculation again. And maybe he's trying to protect Gethin on that, but if that's the case, don't do it just before the Nations Cup.
Yeah,
I think Dean's point is well made about defensive systems taking a long time to gel. Even before you get players as in the entire squad dynamic. And when you talk about squad, it isn't just a 23, it's the wider 40, 50 players who might come in at some stage. They all need to be on the same page. That isn't something you do even in one season. That's a longer term project. But it doesn't get easier for Gethin, defence coach Gethin, because we saw the Ireland team named, and there's some talent in that back line, and there's some new big chassis talent in the number 11 shirt. Debut for Ireland, Mr. James Lowe. Buddy, we've been waiting a while for this, 3 years, but James Lowe could have been an All Black, very close to being one. He's going to be playing for Ireland.
God, and I know we gave big props to Dwayne with Scotland, saying that he was going to come onto the scene and absolutely destroy, and probably hasn't made that big of impact as we thought we were all going to see. But I guarantee James Lowe will. He's a phenomenal athlete, and as we spoke earlier off air, just not quite your typical mould, which we'll touch on a little bit later, of a winger, but a very incredible player and merits every chance he'll get in the jersey.
It's going to be good.
As a Kiwi who's converted to being Italian, I'm all for cross nations. I'm sure someone out there will think it's ridiculous, but I'm all for it.
He's a very, very talented human, and he does a couple of things that other people can't do. Welcome, Jake Pelledri, who comments in from Facebook. Dean was never in a defensive system.
I always was. I was the first man off the ruck, just yelling at everyone. His hands on my knees. Get around, get around.
I love the way all the Italian players constantly pipe in. It's fantastic.
But
I
Dave
think they're just bored out their lives and their bubble they're living in.
Dave Cooney's come in here saying James Lowe for the Lions. This is something that has been piping up for the last 18 months, 2 years, really, is that this is a guy with the talent, and who can do it in big games, and it can do things that some other wingers can't do, Sean.
Yeah, you throw in Duan van der Merwe on that one as well. Talking about Lion, but James Lowe is he just does it every week, and it's coming almost. But I think just the athletic ability, the power, the leg strength, the acceleration really surprises people. And I think I mentioned this before in the pod. He created a try for Jack Conan. Was it last year's final or semi-final, where at pace and he bursts in off the shoulder of the 9. He does an incredible step to wrong foot. I can't remember who it was. It might have been Keith Earls. Floors him. And that's just something which is you can't coach. Shane Williams-esque, you know what I mean? Chesn Colby-esque, where it's very difficult to coach. The secret of that is you coach the team, not the player. So you get him involved to help the team and make him feel valued with his attributes in the team. And that's what Leinster do. We have not seen George North contribute for Wales for how long? So the challenge is to get him involved in areas where he can use his attributes. And Leinster do that with James Lowe, I believe. And it'll be interesting to see if they use that on Friday night, because you just got to get him in the game, haven't you?
Yeah, absolutely.
But his work ethic off the ball is incredible. So he'll get himself in the game, I'd imagine, no matter what.
And when people who maybe didn't watch Super Rugby, say 2 or 3 seasons ago, 4 seasons ago, when he was at the Chiefs, maybe they don't realise how close he was to the All Blacks. I mean, he was right on the cusp of being selected, and it just didn't go his way for a couple of reasons. But to use a coaching term that Sean will be aware of, James Lowe has got a big ass, and he is hard to drop, isn't he, Sean? When he walks into contact, runs into contact, he's got the step, he's got the pass, but you try and go low on James Lowe, and you are going to come off worse for wear, as you see there. I love watching him play. I think he's got it all. I know I always use this term triple threat, but he is one of those players, step, pass, and if all else fails, he can give you a big shunt. Look at that, close to the line. That's three players there.
Yeah, not easy defensive.
It's not easy to defend that. He drops his shoulder at the right time, you know. We saw one there, I think it was against the Scarlets, where he bumps. He knows when to transfer the ball. One thing for a big man is he knows how to score in tight situations, transfers the ball. You know, this isn't something you see very often, is going long distances, but he proves he can do it. And I'm sure we see more clips here. The angle, see how he uses his power and drops his height at the right time. Look at him; he's aware all the time, aware, looking, waiting for the fend, understanding that he might need to grapple. It's just really instinctive stuff, buddy.
No, he's pretty complete. He's a little unorthodox, but I think all his lack of speed, if you want to call it just kind of makes up for that with his timing and knowledge of everything that's happening around him. And you don't really hear, I personally don't hear it much about wingers being very smart. I mean, but he's a really smart player. He just knows where to be and when to be there, and offloads. Look at the timing of that offload. It's just, it's not about trying to make that 1 extra meter for himself. It's about playing for the team and just making sure that he's doing the right things.
And he's put on I remember reading an interview with him. He's put on a few extra kgs deliberately since he came up north. Just because you need. I don't think that's he's just done that in his free time. I think he was told to put on another sort of 5 kilograms to deal with the extra sort of weight and the conditions. So I can't wait to see him play.
Well, he does live near some very good bars, so
that'll do it.
Jake Pelledri, just making sure he doesn't throw anyone else under the bus, and if he does, we want to hear it.
Remove him from the WhatsApp group, Jake.
They're all
episodes behind.
I removed myself because I was still copying banter 2 days ago. And I've been added back in. But
very good.
It's never ending, I tell you.
So James Lowe is someone we've been looking forward to see, and he's an unusual player. Unorthodox is a good word. There's no thing about the finest swordsman in the world doesn't fear the second best one. He fears the unorthodox swordsman. That's what James Lowe is. You do not come up against a player like that every week, no matter what level you're playing at. But Jamison gives a park who could give quite quick ball to Johnny Sexton. Possibly a little surprise to see Sexton picked here in this game, but we'll see how this goes. And possible debutant in Burns on the bench.
Yeah, he's playing a lot of rugby, isn't he, Sexton?
Yeah,
he doesn't seem to be having these fallow weekends that he used to. Every time, just keep playing.
If you add up all he's played in the last 3 years, count them on one hand. He needs to play.
Do you think he's also wary of the threat underneath him and the Lions tour? And he's thinking
it wouldn't be his choice. It wouldn't be his choice. I guess what, I'll play some international rugby now. No, it don't work like that. So I agree with Farrell. I think he needs to play. He's at his best when he's on a run of games. Yeah, he's had stop start. Form has been stop start. So I think he needs a run. My question is, Billy Burns on the bench. I'd go with one of the Burns. I'd go with Ross, or I'd even go with his brother Harry. If
Harry would be interesting if you were really want to push someone forward. I mean, he hasn't played a huge amount of rugby, but he's probably played more than a lot of people think. Like he's got a run of games this season. He's got previous games. There's a lot going on with his passing ability.
He's class.
I know. He's a very different player to his brother. The crispness of his pass is just incredible, and the timing, the floating. It's pretty complete. Yeah. That's what you want as a 10.
And it's all got a little bit of glitter, hasn't it? I love everything about him. It's all, a little bit over the top and a bit. He's my type of 10.
Razzle Dazzle Williams. That's what we want to see.
I do like a bit of that.
Right. Well, we've had. We're looking forward to that game. Friday night's going to catch a few people. I tell you that. Lockdown or not, we won't have crowds. We look forward to that. But we're going to move on to the great debate. This is a bit where I think, in the interests of actually seeming informed, both Dean and I have to kind of step back here because we didn't grow up in Wales, and we don't know why Cardiff, as opposed to Cardiff Blues, is a thing.
Are we really going to give this airtime?
He's coming for me. He's got
are we really giving this airtime? This is old school for me, and there's a train of thought. Williams is advocating, put out on Twitter. Clickbait as usual from Williams.
Not clickbait. That's all. I don't do clickbait.
We should drop Twitter. The Blues.
That's literally how Twitter works.
Drop the Blues and just be Cardiff. There is already a Cardiff, mate. They play in the Welsh Premiership. What's your beef?
Can I step back one moment, because this is where you guys have grown up with this, right? You know that this debate exists. If you're in Ireland or you're in Scotland or you're one of our Italian listeners, and now we have many, what is the origin of this? Because to my, like, I grew up in Dublin, Cardiff Blues, Cardiff, same thing to me. So give us the background and be as clean and objective as you can.
Simply, when Welsh Rugby went regional, teams had to merge. So Neath and Swansea, which is where Sean was, obviously, and that was the most successful of them all, the Ospreys. And then the Blues region was supposed to be Cardiff and Pontypridd, and that sort of side feeding in. But it's never worked. My point of view is that I know what Sean's saying, that marketing wise, and I agree with everything Sean does think on this, in that it needs to be inclusive, and it's stupid to exclude anyone outside of Cardiff. And why would you try and do that? But the point is, they tried that, and they've been trying it for 17 years, and it isn't working. So whilst marketing logic would dictate that you would do as much as possible to encompass as many as possible, also a key thing in marketing is if it isn't working, you kill it after 18 months.
Can I ask a question before Sean comes in? Because you said it twice now. What do you mean it isn't working?
Well, it's alien. The Pontypridd have never bought in to this Blues region. If you follow Welsh Rugby on Twitter a lot, obviously Sean and I get dragged into it quite a bit. They still loathe each other. The supporters really loathe each other. I mean, they row on about it on a daily basis. I'm talking on an hourly basis. Some people, it's almost like it's like if you fused Leinster and Munster and you ended up calling it Leinster Reds. Munster wouldn't be that happy because Leinster's name was in it, right? Even if you were,
they're different provinces, right?
No, but I'm just trying to illustrate as a very basic thing. You're going to alienate somebody when you merge, which didn't happen at Neath Swansea. It's the perfect.
You're kidding me, mate. You're kidding me. I had to stand in a bar in front of a load of real nasty Neath supporters and Swansea supporters and hear it out for a night, and then for the whole of those first couple of years. But you have to win over hearts and minds, and. The Ospreys has become the most successful Welsh region and created a brand and a new generation of rugby supporters, by the way. We should be very proud of that. Supplied the Welsh team. There's a lot of Pontypridd young players who've come through the Blues system, gone on to play for Wales. Corey Hill being a cracking example. But you cannot now just say, well, it's not working on the field. And we're not selling as many shirts, so we'll just go back to being Cardiff. There's been a lot of heartache with this. A lot of eggs have been broken over this process. We have to look forward, and we've got what we've got now. We've got a Cardiff team. They play in the Welsh Premiership. For me, you should drop the Cardiff, and it should just be the Blues. That would be my view. Why you love Super Rugby? Why is it called? Why are Auckland called the Blues? Why won't they drop it and be Auckland?
Well, there is, and I think the difference at Cardiff Blues is that the experiment has, and I take what you're saying with the Ospreys, it was a nightmare when it began, but now that is an accepted, fully fledged region that people, bar a few hardcore, will probably still exist and will not go and watch the Ospreys. That has worked. Cardiff Blues hasn't.
Man, listen, changing the name back to Cardiff isn't going to make the team better.
No, it won't. You are right, it won't.
It might. Listen. I've listened to you. It might make a few. It might make a few die-hard older generation people come and watch Cardiff Blues, right? But it ain't gonna make them win, and it's not gonna make them a couple of million quid. What's gonna get people watching the Cardiff Blues is the team winning, right? So that's what needs to be focused on. Is the development of players through and breaking down barriers, winning over the Pontypridd areas and it takes time. Trust me, we did it. We did it within 3 years. We won our first trophy. 2 years later, win another. A year later, win another. All of a sudden, bang! You got momentum. I've got mates. I'm an Aberafan supporter. I got Aberafan supporters. I'll never go and watch the Ospreys. They're season ticket holders now. They walk around town in Osprey shirts.
I know.
You can't just rip up and say, "Oh, that's not working." Nah, don't like the rubbish.
But then
we got what we got.
But then
we're coming from two different perspectives here, right? Because I want to be really conscious of the non-Welsh Civil War.
There's not too much airtime now.
Is that too
But no,
much time though?
But Jay, I just want to go to, well, what would you do? Because in fairness, right? So, Sean, you're coming from you were right in the middle of it at the time, right?
Oh.
And your job was to create a winning team. Because you know what? Winning teams do sell tickets. Okay, no matter where you are in the world and what the sport, people want to be associated with a winner, right? But there's other times where you have to give something a bit of a kickstart, and this also happens in sport. Where people they rebrand for whatever reason. Paul, you're the marketing dude, so you put it out there for a reason, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not asking you to hang yourself, but what are you thinking when you actually put this out there? Like, are you saying remove Cardiff, remove the Blues, completely rebrand?
No,
What are you thinking?
I think the logic, what they're trying to do is make Cardiff Blues almost the capital, which they use now in their brand, in the capital region. You know, Cardiff is a big, nice capital city now. When you wander around, it's very different to like it was when I lived there sort of 20 years ago. And it needs its own rugby team. So they are thinking is that you'd move that way. And I think the thing, I agree with most of the things Sean's saying there. But if you did market research currently with the Cardiff Blues people, A, who are buying season tickets, and B, who are turning up to games, which there aren't many of, they are the ones who I think should be listened to. And a lot of those people who are there, so people like Sean and I are outside the region. We have nothing to do with it, bar writing about it or talking about it. But people within that region feel very strongly about it. And I think even if they don't do it, I think it's a logical, sensible thing to do, to think about it. Because if your customers are, even if only half of them are really unhappy with it, you have to listen to them.
I'm not with you on it, mate. I think you've got to look ahead. You've got to see it as a challenge, because we started out as Neath Swansea Ospreys. So not only did you ostracize both Neath and Swansea people, what about Aberafan and Bridgend and all that area, Maesteg, all right? So we actually went the other way. We went from being Neath Swansea Ospreys to dropping the Neath Swansea, embracing the Aberafans, Bridgends, Maesteg, and just becoming Ospreys. So why don't you do it differently? Why don't you just, like the Dragons have done, they've dropped the Newport Gwent, right? They're the Dragons. So why can't you become the Blues and try and win hearts and minds? If you just become Cardiff, you straight away ostracize all the Valleys, because you're not going to end up having a Valleys regional team just because you become Cardiff.
No, that's right.
Mate, come on. We've got to pull together on this, and we've got to embrace as many people as we can. Buddy's coming in. We give him 2 minutes.
Not mute for 10 minutes. Touching on Holley's point earlier, that's exactly what happened in New Zealand. There was a massive conscious effort from all the marketing teams to drop Auckland Blues, Wellington Hurricanes, Canterbury Crusaders, and now they're only ever known as it was a move to be more recognised across country, that they're not just Auckland based, and because the player base has started to change as well, and they were able to sign players from other regions. So there's a little bit more to that, but there was my dad was on the Blues board at the time, and there was a massive conscious effort and drive from their marketing team to never ever mention Auckland in any of their Blues material, and I think it's quite successful in establishing new brands.
It's tricky,
like the Ospreys ones. It makes sense to me to remove the name that's the conflict, and then at least you're somewhat neutral and you can win fans over.
I look forward to next season when we actually don't have a name for the Cardiff Blues at all. It's just going to be a low hum, or maybe a look.
It'll just be C, the letter C.
Yeah, he's just looking for free pints around Cardiff again. That's what he's doing, or a bloody coat or a pair of shoes.
I had a couple of those.
We're going to drift back into rugby of the day and not marketing and Civil War. It was close enough, though, in Scarlets. Zebre gave him a real shock. We were actually talking about this just before going on air. Dean, it was they were unlucky now. They looked as if they could really pull out a shock.
Yeah, from watching the game, first of all, I don't know what it is with that Scarlet Stadium, but ever since that Welsh game, it just feels so empty there. There's not really, I don't know, the games there just don't seem to quite have that vibe. But that aside, Zebre, hopefully I've seen it in Italy that when I wasn't in the national team, that when the national team go away, you can, strangely enough, you are kind of scrambling to make up a 23 each week, but you can really create a really tight-knit group when the national team's away, and because you just know week in, week out, they're the boys you're with, and you start to learn what other players doing. You don't have things being mixed up. And I think Zebre, started to show a little bit of cohesion. Still a lot of stupidity. I watched that last kind of 10 minutes or 5 minutes again, and I think they contested every single breakdown to try and win a penalty when all they needed to do was not give a penalty away. And I think it was the Lavotti and the other prop who ended up giving it away, who would have never won a turnover in their life. I think there's still just a massive lack of maturity in those really golden moments of what can be famous wins for Italian rugby teams, and which doesn't collate to the amount of caps on the team, because God, Lavotti's probably got over 100 caps and almost 50 for Italy, and he was one of the boys in there trying to win a turnover. So I was a bit frustrated for them. I wish Ritzy had kicked the conversion a little bit earlier to force Scarlets to kind of have to score a try, because tries weren't really flowing. A bit of a shame, but exciting for them.
Do you know what is quite interesting? A stat. Scarlets have scored 4 tries in 5 games. Scarlets.
No.
The Welsh regions, in a total of 19 matches, have scored 30 tries. Leinster have scored 26 in 5.
Blimey.
Yeah, come on. Where are we going?
Yeah. And at the Scarlets, a lot of them have been up front as well, I think. Wasn't Samson Lee? Didn't he have 2 of those? And
it's good to see Zebre, though, isn't it? It's good to see they're giving it a right dig.
Yeah,
I like Ritzy. Ritzy.
I love watching the Italian teams. My favourite bit of that game, even though it's exactly what Dean is talking about now, was when Ritzy offloaded the ball blind on his back under his own posts. I watched it back about 3 times.
That was hilarious, wasn't it?
I've written about it in my piece. I've called it the blind turtle offload. So you're on your back, you're on your shell, and then you shut your eyes, and then you just fling it under your post. Do you know, the only other player I've seen do something like that, it won't surprise you, it was Quade Cooper, and he offloaded when he was hanging upside down on a flanker's shoulder under his own post in Super Rugby.
They are the two. There was someone there.
I know, but Ritzy was fine. I didn't know. You could tell he hadn't had a call. Nobody said, pop it. It was just, I'm putting this up. Brilliant.
Yeah. And that sums up probably those clutch moments that aren't going in their favour.
Like you say. Yeah, it was a good game. I really enjoyed it.
That game was one of the few that Sean Holley wasn't commentating on this weekend, because you commentated on half the games. One of them was probably kind of hard. So for anyone who didn't see the Edinburgh-Cardiff game, it was 18-0 to Edinburgh. But what was that game like for anyone who didn't see it?
It's unbelievable.
What's the game itself, or what the conditions?
The conditions.
Unbelievable. I turned up. Yeah, right. That wasn't quite it.
For anyone listening, Adam's having his little fun. It did not look like nice and sunny.
I turned up and I said to Chris, that was not my view from the country. He's now showing a clear, beautiful day in Edinburgh. When I turned up, I said to Chris Patterson, are the floodlights on? I genuinely did. He said,
the floodlights on.
I think so. Because it was bad at the start. That is excellent. That is.
That's not true reflection at all. It's much worse than that.
And when you commented in Murrayfield, you're quite a way back from the pitch. And so you've got a monitor as well. So what you were seeing on the screen was bad, right? But people were commenting in and saying, "Oh God, I can't see," and but live it was worse. So the pictures were actually giving you a little bit of sort of focus. But and fair play to the director, right? And he's got a flack here today, not him, but Premier Sports have. He was trying to just find. He's got 4 cameras on the side which go tight and wide, and then he's got a couple of guys on the ground who are trying to pick up replays and action shots off the ball. But he wouldn't normally use them in normal game. He had to use them because down on ground level we had some vision and saw some irregular shots, but only because he was trying to get a view of some players.
I thought he did brilliantly.
He did brilliant. I mentioned it in commentary as well. But
I've written about it in my column because, like you say, it was either that or see nothing. So he had to use those guys in the bottom corner. It looked like a Civil War recreation when you were watching it, like something from the 1870s in the USA.
I thought it was. Rory Hamilton did a brilliant job. The lead commentator.
He really did.
I don't know whether he was guessing or what, but at least we had the benefit of listening to him, watching parts of the monitor, and then doing follow-up comments. I actually found it quite fun, Andy, to answer your question, because it's not always you get something like that. And it was a bit of a challenge. I had a bit of pressure, which I like, live, and you had to make sure that a decent product went out. So it was tough, but you just literally, and of course the Blues are playing in white.
Yeah, I think what was lovely because it looked like you were watching your local team in the park because of the camera angle. So it looked like I was watching Gowerton. You know when you stand by the corner flag and you can chat to your friends? It sort of felt like that. It's just it was like Hidalgo Klein or whatever. Not Hidalgo.
And do you know what I said to the director today? Because he was a bit, for the comments. I said, actually, what people should have been thinking and looking at is some of those ground shot levels. You got to see some of the ferocity of the hits.
Yeah, you did.
You actually get a snapshot of what it's like.
Yeah.
It was quite sort of ethnographic. You could get in there. So, it was what it was. And ultimately, it didn't really affect the game. Andrew Brace did a good job. He said no, because I think if I was coaching the Cardiff Blues at 59 minutes and 30 seconds, I would have been yelling to one of my players or the captain to have a go and say, it's not safe. I just had a head injury. Because at 60 minutes, I think it's 60 minutes, the game stands. So at 59, skipper, it's not safe, ref, hurt my neck.
Yeah, someone just stumped me and you didn't see it. We're going off.
For anyone, I was struck by Peter Jackson's tweet. So Peter Jackson has been around the rugby writing world for many, many years. So in case anyone thinks that we might be exaggerating this, Peter tweeted, endured some extreme weather at Murrayfield in my time, but never anything like the fog shrouding Edinburgh versus Cardiff. Had any spectators been there, they'd have had no option but to call it off. And that's something I was thinking, because if you were fans, you'd be going, well, we literally cannot see the game. And that's probably another aspect to it if it was a different time. But right now, do you know what? You've got other ways for calling games off now. Comment from Paulo Frejo. We might come to Adam later on. We've talked about the postponed games before. We mightn't do it in this show, Paul, because we did it last week, but we'll come back to that because it's a live topic with Connacht having another couple of games postponed as well. Right. We move on. So we didn't really talk about the game. Is there anything you want to talk about from the game itself, Sean?
The game was disappointing from the Blues' point of view, because I tried to call it before the game. I said it'll come down to who takes their chances close to the line, and that's exactly what happened. The Blues had a couple of chances after half-time and didn't take them. Again, they could have taken shots at goal, but went for the corner, didn't score. And when Edinburgh got close to the line in the first half, they scored. Atalifo scored, and then when they got close to the line in the second half, the one time they scored from a driving maul cherry. That was the game. But in all honesty, Edinburgh dominated it. There was far too many loose errors from the Cardiff Blues. A lot of talk in Wales about the skill levels in the Welsh regional teams. And it was a classic Cockers coached performance at this time of year, staffed, and he just ground out a sort of forward carrying set piece win. Did enough. That's all you want, mate, isn't it, Dean? Yeah. That's all you want. You know?
That plays right in the Cockers' hands, that kind of setup. And
Owen Lane played well on his proper start back, I thought, but other than that, they didn't really look like scoring, did they?
No, they didn't, mate. It was like Harley Worthy has just said a word that came to my mind there. It wasn't great, you know. It was, too many turnovers. I felt sorry for Ollie Robinson, who tried to get out.
He was fantastic.
Another 5 or 6 turnovers, put his body on the line. Even he was guilty of some knock-ons, but this, and the only other upside for the Blues was the young halfbacks that came on. So we're talking about young players. They got some experience, showed a bit of fizz. As for Edinburgh, as I say, Cockers knows he's got some guys for those sort of games. They can do a job at home.
Right, Edinburgh next week face Leinster. as their treat. Leinster Ospreys, it was interesting at the start, and then it got less interesting if you're an Ospreys fan. 26-7 in the end. But this is a game where we have a couple of Holly's heroes coming out here.
Okay.
So
Okay.
two names pumped out here, Jimmy O'Brien and Matt Prothero. So you go.
Yeah, I impressed with Jimmy O'Brien. A lot of the focus was on Byrne at 10, but this kid had a real good game. This is some earlier footage. Now, he's 23, he's played a lot of sevens, right? And he's played at 10 and centre. Now, they're running him at fullback, but you can see how comfortable he is in the middle of the field. I just like his acceleration. He's not the biggest lad, but nice fend. Things like that impress me, boys. You know, able to transfer the ball. Look how he transfers the ball here. Bang, transfer, fend. You know, I used to practice that with Andrew Bishop, Gavin Henson and Sonny Parker. And this is a try-saving intervention coming back all the way. He was out of position. And then look what he does here. Doesn't give up and touchdown. Doesn't do an overhead throw like Ritzy. He gets up and runs out, you know. There's an assist. You know, don't underestimate those sort of things. This guy is coming up under the radar. And I just wonder, you got Stockdale playing at 15 for Ireland. Doesn't convince me at 15 yet, Stockdale. Yeah. You know, could this be a guy? Hugo Keenan came under the radar, is now playing on the wing for Ireland. Liked his attitude, you know, like what he's about. Jimmy O'Brien.
Yeah, it's almost as if having a sevens program is a good idea.
Quick story.
Ireland didn't have one for a long time.
Very quick behind-the-scenes story. You're given a team sheet 5 minutes before kickoff by the team managers that signed off. These are the teams, right? When you commentate. And I always don't use it. I use my own, right? So I just check it, right? Shane's got his next to him, and there's a typo on the Leinster team, right? Jimmy's down as Kimmy with a K. So the first 3 times he touches the ball, Shane's going, nice play by Kimmy O'Brien.
I love him.
2 meters away from him, and I'm going, Jimmy's going, what? Headphones on. I have to lean over, scrub out Kimmy, and write Jimmy.
Oh, fantastic! Very good.
Paul, you've talked about a number of things in your column. Another one is coming up. We get video of Mr. Prothero, late of Bristol and now not of Bristol. You're impressed.
Yeah, and you know, they didn't have an awful lot of ball, the Ospreys, but I just think he brings, and this isn't an in-depth coaching discussion, but just a lovely elegance. Do you know the way he runs? He's like an old-fashioned, I looked up his stats on the weekend, he's only about 11 stone 5, I think. And let's face it, that probably means he's 11 stone. And just the way he runs and he's able to shift his balance there, look at that. It's like a sort of, I'm not going to compare him to anyone really. He's too young in that regard, but he played so well, so many touches, and particularly towards the end when the Ospreys fell away, he became more involved. He started coming in off his wing an awful lot more. I'm really impressed with him. You think of being that build, look at that step there. You think of being that build now with modern wingers around you, like we're talking about North and Lowe, who are all, you know, minimum 14 stone 10 up to like 16 stone. He doesn't really fit that blueprint, but he's beautiful to watch.
He's a lovely balanced runner, and he's almost the definition of a slippery winger.
He is. He's like a 70s winger, is what I've put in my call. He looks like a player from an age gone by. You know, he's it's fantastic.
He was getting stuck in on the weekend. He gave it a dig. He was coming off his wing. He was running into big guys. It was quite funny. Shane was going like this, ooh, you know, and Dean there himself. So he did well. I like him. He's a good signing.
Yeah, and his haircut doesn't help. He's got a sort of foppish quiff as well, doesn't he? So he looks like something from the 50s. He's fantastic.
Yeah. Well, what was the
just
winger?
needs his socks down.
Yeah, socks, exactly that. Yeah, and a head.
David Duckham. David Duckham.
There we go. He's exactly that, man. Age gone by. He's fantastic.
There was one more clip from this game that Adam, fair play to him, turned around really quick before the show. And it was a funny one because we were talking about it in the pod WhatsApp group. And it coincidentally, I didn't know this, but both Sean and Paul have written about it this week. It's something, Sean, without giving away your column, you've called it the third set piece. So I'm going to have
I wrote my Rugby World article about Exeter Chiefs. They scored 2 tries from this format in the Champions Cup final against Racing, one in the game, but they do treat it as a third piece. It's something that Danny Wilson does a lot of the teams he coaches. They use this tap penalty because you see when you get into tight games and maybe the scrum is 50-50. And again, Buddy will tell you this: don't put the outcome in the opposition's hands or the referee's hands. And a 50-50 scrum goes down, right? A ref I told you this before, just wants to get out of dodge. He's going to give a free kick or a penalty.
I'm going to pause you there, Sean, just for 1 sec, because we need to tell people exactly what we're talking about. So they haven't seen the video, right?
I'm talking about tap penalties 5 meters out from the try line. That's what we're talking about. Why go for a tap penalty like this rather than take a scrum? Well, it's a 50-50. You could get challenged in the line out, lose the line out. This, you keep possession, or your aim is to keep possession and then build a score from here, drive over as Leinster do for their bonus point try. So it's a safer option, and you can coach it and plan it a couple of phases. And what the issue here is, Andy's raised, is the potential of latching on, binding onto the ball carrier before contact, a la the old flying wedge from the 70s and 80s. Now, my issue is, you run 5 meters out, buddy, on your own there. All the defence are lined up waiting for you. You're going to get smashed.
Yeah, you're going to be worried about your knees, but that's for sure. But when I saw this clip come through, I just thought it's a stroke of genius, because the amount of times you go for a scrum penalty or will take that scrum in that situation and end up in that same, or even a yard or two back. There's not a lot of first phase tries coming nowadays. I just thought it was just the stroke of genius, and I hadn't seen Exeter do it. And I thought, wow, well, fair play Leinster. But in terms of I'm not sure if you guys what the rules are, but if you did have those two boys latched on you, that's the ultimate dream. I know, Sean, you're saying that maybe the defence has still got the hands up, but if you've got a bit of a nutter like Coetzee, who we're going to see in a bit, who's got that ball with two blokes on him, I don't want to tackle that. No. I don't want to tackle him 1-on-1 when he's 3-on-1. I'll just, there you go, you have that.
It's like tackling a milk float.
Yeah.
Isn't it? That sort of weight trundling at you.
Can I get nerdy for a second to bring up that point about so Dean, you're asking what the law bit. So I had a couple of refs get back to me on this as well, because it's a couple of years ago they clarified the point about the latch. So you can have one player latched onto you going into contact. You can't have two, right? So when you see that clip again, Ruddock is making sure he gives the referee and the officials a really good thing that's saying, I've got a big arm out here. I'm definitely not bound. But I tell you what, you need to time that well, because for my money, when he goes into contact, he's definitely shunting them through, right? But it's not a latch. Now, if you miscoach that, that's a wedge. And the reason, and it isn't in rugby anymore, and there's generations, probably 2 generations of players and fans have gone through this without seeing it. It was dangerous, really, really dangerous, and that's where the
flying wedge was. Yeah, the flying wedge. Yeah. You basically all bound, tap, pick the ball up, all bind, and literally, as it says, the flying wedge of all of it, unstoppable. Really, transfer the ball back, and once there's contact made, and it's all over. That they've done very smart there, and Exeter do the same. They come in twos, and then the inside clean comes slightly later, so you've got an outside clean and then an inside clean, and the ball carrier will fall out. In other words, the flow of play, because it's harder for the inside jackler to get the ball. And then the other thing about it is you get your best ball carriers on the ball. That's why it's pre-planned, pre-coached. So they use Simmons at Exeter, the big ball carrier number 8. This is Sam Simmons, and he gets on that ball every other phase. Yeah, and the big guys are clearing.
It was in the Ulster Glasgow game last night as well. They tried it, and it led to a knock-on. But it's like you say, it takes the risk of that scrum out, doesn't it? And especially if you're not near the touchline. I imagine if you're near the touchline, they'll probably go for the line out. But if you're, just left or right of the post like they were, it's.
Most penalties are taking 15 in anyway, see, mate.
Well, yeah, but you know what I mean. But it gives you, I don't know, it just seems less risky, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In my mind.
If I'm an opposition coach coming up against a team who uses that tactic, I am telling the referee before the game to watch that third player falling over the ball and sealing off. Yeah. All day long. Dino, you want to come in?
I've just had a quick off pod question here from Jake Pellegri to Sean. Why didn't you sign him? he's just run it through.
Yeah.
Why didn't you sign me at Bristol?
I said this at the pod before. We had Jake.
You did.
Yeah, we had it. Jake was around at Bristol when I was there, and I remember. I think Jake, did you sit on the bench once or twice on a Monday night in an A game? And I don't want to apportion any blame, but there's a few guys who are no longer at Bristol that should still be at Bristol. You know, that's just unfortunate. I don't think it helped that we were in the Championship and having to go through playoffs and that, but you could just see it even in in the glimpses you saw of him. Likewise, Ellis Genge and I think if Jake's honest, I don't know when he come back to me on this, but he was probably desperate to play for Bristol at the time. So, but mate, you've done so well, Jake. You've done superbly. Very proud of what you achieved. Keep doing what you're doing. You've got bigger things to come.
Especially that try against England.
Funny how it works out. Yeah.
Cracking.
Speaking of big things, Marcell Coetzee. Marcell Coetzee is a big thing, right?
He's a big thing.
And he's been doing big things, and it's great to see him because he had that bad run of injury, and now he isn't injured, and he's doing like destructive things. So he's leading try scorer and successful carries in the championship so far. Most offloads, lots of tackles, winning turnovers. I don't know if 118 meters gained right now is good or not. So I'd have to look at that. But that's what he has done so far. But it's the way he does it is very, very impressive. We've got some video to roll here of Coetzee in action. And the thing we want to bring Dean in on is that it's very easy for me as an idiot, as someone not educated, to say that looks very impressive. It's a man running over other men and being strong. Dean, as an ex-pro, you might see something different here. So, Adam, if you want to roll that through.
Well, I mean, first of all, I think the first thing obviously he's got the power, the ability, and everything, but he just knows his role. On that try that he's just scored, then he was actually the first available to clean that ruck, and he knows that his value to the team isn't cleaning rucks and it's carrying balls. So you see him peel out, carry that. He's got a one-on-one carry with quick ball. He's going over the line and scoring top try scorer of the competition so far. And you kind of think, oh, that's enough. He's got the power. What else can he do? And then you start seeing all these cute little offloads that he can do and the skill. He's really a complete player. He's got the power of the number 8. He's got the speed from what you see of a winger there, and then off those offloads. I mean, that puts him almost at a first 5 kind of level in my book. So he's, in Paul's words of being a triple threat, he really is a complete number 8. And touching on, we spoke about the ninth utility Eddie Jones option. Could you play him at 12? Absolutely, I reckon. You make him a little bit fresher, give him less rucks to clean out, and he's got that complete skill set. It's quite hard to even, I mean, a player's perspective is that of the fan in this instance. Big brute, power, unstoppable. It's a really simple formula. Well, simply said, easy to do, not at all. But a very complete player and clearly ahead in every statistic in attack. And I actually noted he's 16th in turnovers won and 17th in tackles made, and they seem really far down the list compared to first if you're running first out everywhere. But it just shows he's very active in defense as well, and he's been one of the signings for Ulster absolutely over the last 5 years. He's been the best signing I've seen them make, and apart from Jared Payne, I've got to plug him. He's a good mate. got to give some mates some props nowadays rather than just ripping them down. But after Jared Payne, Coetzee is the second best signing.
Yeah, he should be playing Test rugby. Let's face it. It's a shame that he isn't really. I'd be picking him.
Yeah, I think he's not far off. But I mean, the loose trio of South Africa, God.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, and he's not that freakish, is he? When you go back to South Africa, I think it's just when you just tend to come up and see the 8s maybe outside of South Africa, and then you're a bit more sort of taken aback. But they're dripping with players like that, aren't they? That's the reality.
There, we've had loads of comments in this today, which is just it's great. We like to see us coming in and enjoying the show, so we might touch on those towards the end. But Dean, you mentioned something that we do want to get to before the end of the show, which is Eddie Jones. Eddie Jones has his fun with the media and with everybody else. He has talked about the concept of having a utility player, someone who's a hybrid player between forward and back before. But now he's brought it up again in the context of facing Georgia, and that potentially playing someone a ninth forward as part of the starting 15. This to me is interesting, even if it's Eddie being Eddie, because I love unconventional tactics in games. But he's England now. He isn't Japan trying to do something. Doesn't really need to do it. So, Dean, do you think that we could genuinely see, a big forward rolling down the wing against Georgia, and then,
If I was the coach, I wouldn't do it 100%. I mean, the last experiment like that was old Burger Mascot 9, wasn't it?
Yeah, which was beautiful.
That's asking a bit much of him to go from Lucy to flanker. But I mean, guys have their roles because they're the best in those roles, and so it's to start screwing with things like that. I can see it. I can certainly see. I mean, if he wanted to play a structure of maybe having a kind of 5-2-2 and having two Lucies running the wings the whole time, and then you've got your 3 off your pod and your 2 off the 10, then you could. I mean, that's what teams are trying to manipulate defenses to have is to create those flankers running in the wide channels against smaller backs. So it does have merit and sense from my point of view. It'd be interesting to see what a real coach thinks about that, and you, Sean. But I think it's got wheels. But it's I don't know at international level.
I'm still banging on about having hookers in the 5 meter of defensive lineouts and nines sweeping in the boot. I'm a traditionalist like that. I think you have your place if you want that sort of thing. Pick Stuart McCloskey in the centre for Ireland. You know what I mean? He's big enough. He's like a second row himself, but he's a back by nature. And then his caveat is maybe it won't work if you put a back in them and so forwards. Well, of course it won't work. That's where they've grown up playing a position and they end up in a position for a reason. There's no problem in innovating within the game. That's why you have 4, 5, 6-man lineouts. We used to put Philo Tiatia out in the midfield of a 5-man lineout. Not very pleasant for the defending 10 or 12, or Jerry Collins out there. That's different, when you manipulate them in phase play. But no, I don't see it. Sam Burgess, that's probably the short answer.
That's Sam Burgess, Tony Bill Williams, 100%.
Jamie Roberts.
Yeah.
He's doing it right because he's gung ho and because he can, and they've just won the Six Nations and they're playing Georgia. It's disrespectful. He won't do it against Wales or Ireland. So move on.
Although I do love a bit of, I've mentioned this before, Sean won't like this, but I would always wanted to see Shane Williams packed down at 8 on a 5 meter scrum once, just to see him get around the outside. Because I always think how cool it would be because he could get straight outside. But then
when you can play scrum half.
Well, there we go. There we are.
No. I'm picking you up. So this has happened. Toulouse have run Colby at 8.
What? Really?
Okay. Yes. Right. They've run Colby at 8. Connacht have run Bundyaki at 8 for the same reason.
Yes, I've seen that.
Get him off, not as the same, not the same player. And then you turn it around as well. So some team, I forget who it was, Harlequins. Harlequins, I think it was last season, they put one of their backs into blindside on the scrum in order to move one of their backs back into the fly half channel defensively. Okay.
Yeah.
And just so I know, Sean, exactly what you're saying about this seems completely wrong, but there is bits within that I think we're going to see teams who have players with really particular skill sets think about getting creative, not for the entire game, but for certain parts of the game.
Yeah.
I'm all for innovation, and I've been part of coaching teams and teams where we have tried to innovate, but it is that you try. They don't prevail.
No,
You know, Colby isn't going there every scrum or every game. I wouldn't risk him there, you know, and he's dangerous elsewhere. Plus, he takes a threat out from all you're doing is you're putting your threat from one part of the field to another part of the field. So as much as you're gaining somewhere, you're losing somewhere else. It's just how many ways you want to skin a cat. But, I advocated putting a scrum half in the line out, lifting him, and then turning him so he could wing a big scrum half pass out into the midfield. There's nothing more innovative than that. Sounds great, but it's bollocks idea, really, isn't it?
I'd love to see that. No, that'd be amazing. Mid-air zip to 12.
This is brilliant. I've got a live fact check here. Thank you. Ottavio Arenella and Harley Worthy. It was Marcus Smith. Marcus Smith was put into the scrum to put the open side into the 10 channel. Thank you. That's what I was thinking of. Right. There's some good comments coming over the show. We've ticked over the armor. Owen H. Did Sean Holley ask for Scott Penny's autograph the weekend? You are a bit of a fanboy.
He is.
Yeah. Part of my job is to pick these guys out, and I said I wouldn't be surprised if he gets over the line again today, and he did. He didn't let me down. Got a yellow card as well, mine, I think. Pulled them all down for the penalty try.
Kyle Rees. Oh yeah, this was the great birthday videos. He asked Paul to send a video. Paul said he was too busy.
That's not true. That's not true. I thought we were doing one big collective one, all of us on the pod, and then when it didn't happen, I wasn't sure what was going on. I'd never do that to you, Sean.
Yeah, it's difficult to do that when I'm on the pod.
That's what I thought had gone wrong. I thought we were going to do it after one of the pods, surreptitiously.
I'm at the risk of igniting the civil war again. Another comment from Kyle Rees. There was talk of merging the Scarlets and Ospreys last year to make room for a North Walian pro-regional team. As an Ospreys fan, he didn't really like the idea.
Don't ask Sean about that. He'll explode.
We're not going. You're not allowed to talk, gents, on that one. Ian Gilbert, positional changes. Move Wayne Barnes, the 6'4" Wayne Barnes to ball boy.
Innovative.
Should have done that before the semi-final back in the way.
Wow. Stephen Sheridan, do you think the Welsh lack of form is due to the loss of Sean Edwards to France? More gaps seem to have appeared in the Welsh defence. We did touch a little on this at the start of the show. Sean, bit of that?
Yeah, there's a bit of that, a lack of continuity, but he talked about maybe slightly changed the system. Look, hindsight's a wonderful thing, but and it was difficult at the time contract-wise from what we can see. But I think there needed to be some continuity there, and it's manifested itself in that. But they've had 5-6 internationals now. They should be better than what they are at the moment. Let's see what happens on Friday.
Ewan Davis, as you have Dean on, what's your opinion of Steve Varney, Welsh-born but chose Italy, and whether you think he'll get a cap this autumn with Brayley injured?
From what I hear, yeah, he's well within the running. I think he's, from what I understand, dealing with a few personal issues himself of just settling into the team and the language and learning everything. So it's not an easy process. I know when they bought Callum in a year and a half ago, that he kind of got us kind of a month period of just learning the calls and understanding. So I haven't actually seen much of Steve Varney play, but from what I understand, a solid player, and I think could add some value to that Italy team if he's week in, week out with Gloucester.
All right.
So yeah.
That's it for our comments. A few things. If you want to, if you're good at leaving comments, and a lot of our viewers and listeners are good at leaving comments, go over to Apple, leave some funny reviews. We will read them and provide a prize. Funny, good, constructive criticism is great, as long as it's beside a 5-star review. Okay?
Yeah.
That's the deal. We're almost done. Predictions for Friday? What do you think?
Friday is Ireland Wales, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh God.
When he sticks his hands in his head.
I'm gonna go Ireland 28.
Yeah.
Wales 18.
Yeah, I'll go Ireland 30, Wales 15.
Okay, Dean.
Oh, let's see. I'll go 40. I know I've been quite 40 to Ireland and I'd give Wales. What are we saying? They're not scoring tries. 13. Little penalty early on.
James Lowe hat-trick.
Yeah.
Well, okay. 28-7 for me.
Ooh, that'll be
Italy
good.
to beat Scotland.
This is interesting to me. Yeah.
And me.
I'm a believer. It was always a game that we were a different beast for.
Yeah.
And you got 2 10s out. I reckon they're a chance. And if I dog the boys 3 times in a row, I'm definitely out. So 100% they're going to win.
He's back in Italy again. He's got the Italian flag going in the background, pizza in front of him. Yeah. I think it's gonna be a good little game.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, 12:45 on Saturday, and then we have the Guinness Pro 14 slate for the weekend. So just where we get through it, Saturday Connacht Scarlets, Sunday Munster Ospreys, and Monday Night Rugby, Zebre Ulster, Cardiff Benetton, and Leinster Edinburgh. Good way to finish it off.
Against Benetton.
Not going there. Not going there.
You just said Cardiff. It's not.
Okay.
I've had that cut.
Adam chips in from the sidelines with Paul Williams has just criticised someone for having a foppish quiff.
That was last week's Paul.
That was, yeah.
Gone.
Right. That is a wrap. Plenty of rugby to look forward to. Thank you for everyone coming along. Thank you, Dean Budd. Thank you, Sean Holley, Paul Williams, and behind the scenes, the mustachioed from November, Adam Redmond. That will come back next week, my friends. That was Under the Sticks, brought to you by Pro 14 Rugby. My name's Andy McGeady. We'll talk to you soon.
He called me cheetah, cheetah, cheetah. Ooh, cheetah, cheetah, cheetah. I love